And we'll begin with a presentation by the Charter Review Commission. How are you doing that? Good evening, Mr. Post.
Mr. Post?
How are you, everybody?
Hello, sir.
Nice to see you all. So I am assuming that you all have received this packet. Yes. So we have met multiple times and came up with a bunch of changes, and I just want to first start by saying thank you all for putting me on this committee. I thought it was very educational, and you know, when you go through the charter and see how it's written, it explains a lot, so thank you for that opportunity.
Excuse me, Mr. Post, before you get rolling here, just so we're all on the same page, what council has before them are 6 individual items of legislation, 1 for each article. They didn't get, you have all of them together because you have that packet.
Right.
Okay, they have, I think, from 74 to 86 different pieces of legislation, so they're each broken up by article, free sequentially through it. So, just to give you a heads up, that that's what council has.
I don't know what you guys have.
This is just state words to
So, the last couple words, the council one, the mayor one, salaries and bonds.
Gotcha.
Or it's on the last
You can use
line
that
of that.
reference if you want.
Okay. All right. We'll go for it. All right, so I have to read through what you guys have here. Well, let me start with, are there any specific questions you have? Start with that. No?
No, I've read them, and
I have to read through what you guys have here. Well, let me start with, are there any specific questions you have? Start with that. No?
no, I've read them, and
Yeah.
Ordinance 75 would be Article 3, if you wanted to start there.
Okay, regarding the council,
Yes.
ordinance 75. What does that one say? Ordinance just question.
I don't at home. She sent us.
So is Article 3, council. All right, so in Article, ordinance 75, which is Article 3, all right, so one thing we took out was the Twinsburg Development Foundation, because we didn't actually know anything about the Twinsburg Development Foundation. That's, we think, very old. The major thing that we changed in here, and I'll read it to you, is that any sitting council member who has 2 or more years left on their current term shall be prohibited from running for a different council seat without first resigning his or her current seat on council. Such resignation shall take place prior to the council member filing petitions with the Board of Elections for a new council seat. So it basically says if you're already on council, and you want to run for another position, you need to resign your current position in order to run for a different position. Okay? That's what that one changes.
more than 2 years left.
There's more than 2 years left. Correct. And who has more than 2 years left on their term.
But they're staggered every 2 years, so.
Right.
Right. So that's why. So if you have under 2 years. Okay.
Okay, Dave, I have a question for you. Can we discriminate with that 2-year thing, if you have more than 2 years or less, to say you can or can't do this?
Well, it wouldn't be discriminating, because
For charter
the 2-year would be the stagger. So if your council seat is up, we're not saying you couldn't run for another council seat. For example, if you're a ward council person, there's an at-large seat, and your ward seat's up the same time, you can run for that large seat without having to resign if you only have 6 months left, 3 months left in your term, whatever it might be. Does that make sense? But you can't.
Yeah, but yes and no. My question is would we have a legal problem, even though it's our charter and our charter rules, charters can be challenged, would we have a legal problem that we are discriminating? The guys that have 3 and 4 years have to resign, the guys that are under 2 don't have to resign and they can run, right? As long as you can't file for another position on that next election, so.
Well, the difference would be, the only way you would have under 2 years would be if your council seat's up anyway. So you're making a choice. I'm going to run for either at-large or ward instead of my current seat. That would be the choice, because the way we are staggered, it would be 2 years or more, no matter what, at the time you filed your petition. You would have 2 full years left in your council seat if you're a sitting council member.
I understand, I do understand that, okay, but here's my question. Do you think that if somebody legally challenges this, that says I've got 3 years left and I want to run for another position, are we going to withstand a legal challenge on that? Because we're going to
And we're
not requiring the guy under 2 years to resign before he files his petitions, right?
correct, because his seat's up anyway. His or her
Right.
seat would be up anyway.
Right, but in this one, over 3 years, you're making the guy resign immediately before he even throws his hat in the ring.
At the time, yeah, at the time.
Right.
We're not making you. We wouldn't be making the person run. We wouldn't be making the person run either.
Well,
You can keep your current seat and simply choose to not run. I mean,
I'm just asking.
I think we're on solid ground. I mean, I think with the charter, with home rule, and being able to pass this, I mean,
Okay,
that's not the issue. I mean,
all right.
Okay. All right, let me keep moving. Do we want to go through every change in here?
Yep.
Do we? Okay. I just want to make sure, because we're going to be a
they've
while.
all been highlighted they're redlined and lined out.
Yes,
for
I'm just going to go
council.
through all the red lines. So the only other thing here in Article 3 is we changed some things to be electronic mail as opposed to snail mail. I'm flipping through as fast as I can here. David, are you looking at this also?
I am,
Okay, so I'm looking at 3.1, ordinances and resolutions here.
correct.
I mean, I don't think we need to go through, right?
Well, the
That one there's
important
kind of-
distinction that you guys made in that section is by putting the words "or specifically authorizing" as compared to involving the expenditure of money.
Okay, thank you.
The conversation with involving the expenditure of money was the issue of that if council passes or authorizes the engineer to go out to apply, submit an application for funding. The argument could be made that that involves potentially the expenditure of money, because if we get awarded the grant down the road, at some point in time, the city could have to expend money, and therefore, there should be 3 readings and legislation as
Sure.
compared to a resolution.
But if we're going for a grant, we can still use resolutions, and this just cleans up the language.
That's exactly right.
Thank you.
So, does that make sense? I mean,
Yeah.
that was the conversation that we had.
All right, that's all we have there for ordinance 75. I'm now looking at what you have here also. So now we'll go on to ordinance 76.
Yeah.
Ordinance 76 is, what we did first is you guys are looking at this, if you go to 4.04, the first one, A, B, C, really what we did there is we just, again, cleaning up language that when a mayor is temporarily unavailable, just temporarily, it was just too much, it was just a language cleanup.
Ambiguous?
It was ambiguous. Excellent word choice. It was ambiguous. And then what we really, if you go down to D, I'm going to read that out loud so you guys can hear what this says. In the event of the vacancy in the office of mayor and the unexpired term of the mayor is in excess of 6 months, the office of mayor shall be filled by an electorate of the city at an election. The election to fill the vacancy in the office of the mayor for the remainder of the unexpired term shall be held at either the next primary election or the next general election, whichever comes first, after the expiration of 90 days of vacancy occurs. So basically, the whole point of all this is that we wanted a temporary mayor in the event that a mayor should become unavailable in a
Instead of
permanent
just letting
fashion.
the city president, or council president have it for the rest of the term.
Right, it's just, it will be, at maximum, our goal is 6 months. And that's what that language says, is that it will be no longer 6 months, so the next election is 6 months. Okay? Good? All right. In the event that any individual becomes the acting mayor as a result of the vacancy in the office of mayor, such acting mayor shall be entitled to be compensated in the same capacity as if she was duly elected to the position. Any council member that accepts the position of acting mayor shall be permitted to do so in a part-time capacity at the pro-rata compensation rate as if he or she was full-time. However, anyone serving in the capacity of acting mayor shall only be entitled to compensation as acting mayor and not council member. This provision shall not apply to any temporary absence or incapacity of the mayor as contemplated in section incapacity of the mayor as contemplated in Section A above. Here's the point of that. First of all, we don't want someone who, as a council member, who's taking on the role of mayor for a very temporary 6-month position to get paid their salary as council member and mayor. It seems like it's redundant. It's, you know, it's for 6 months, it's temporary. The other thing we wanted here was, we also put in here that someone who's doing it temporarily can be part-time, was because unexpectedly, wow, you're the mayor, wow, I need to quit my job now to be mayor. And we don't think that's fair to anybody to say, you need to quit your job. Okay, if someone's retired, great, they have the choice to do it in a full-time capacity, or if someone's not working. But if someone is working, they can, you know, and the role of mayor is such a flexible position anyways, where you have nighttime meetings. It's not really an 8 to 4 situation, that we just thought we'd give people the option and their choices to be whether to be full-time or part-time. Okay, questions on that? Okay. And the last thing was the salary of the mayor. The mayor shall be entitled to all benefits currently afforded other full-time employees of the city. The salary of the mayor shall be 5% above the salary of the highest paid department head in the city, excluding the law director, as established by ordinance adopted by council. Should the salary of the highest paid department head decrease in any year, the mayor's salary shall not be reduced, but shall only increase at the same percentage rate granted by other department heads. Basically, we just wanted to clarify that the mayor should be, being that he is, or she is the, you know, top position, we just want to make sure that the mayor's salary is the highest. So we had a lot of discussion about this, not just saying it's automatic 5%, but the salaries are they're pretty close. And some of the department heads that have been here a very long time, and so their salaries are high, and so the mayor should be higher than them, 5% even. So we wanted to make it so that they are 5% higher. But in the event, let's say someone who's been here 30 years as a fire chief or whatever has a high salary and they resign, if the new fire chief has a low salary, that doesn't mean the mayor's salary should come down to just 5% above that. So the mayor's salary won't come down, but it will only increase as the same rate as all the other employees, I think, the 2% or whatever it is, if in the event the department head's salary comes down. I hope that made sense. Good?
Yeah.
All right.
But I have a question.
Yes.
So what if, for instance, not everyone, you know, we have a freeze on wages or something, then is that compensated in here, that
Well,
you would not get, that person would not get an automatic?
Well, if the mayor, yeah, the mayor would be in line. Well, if there's a freeze,
Freeze on-
based on this, he's 5% higher than the highest wage. So if that wage froze, his wage would freeze also.
Or there would be there's nothing in your automatic.
Well, it said that.
There'd be reshaded and only increase at the same percentage.
So
of
if, let's use an easy number. The highest paid employee makes $100,000. The mayor will be 5% above that. Okay, so add 5%, add $5,000, $105,000. Take a discussion. Let's say that the chief, who's making $100,000, resigns and quits, and we bring in a younger, new person, no experience, so his starting salary is $85,000. Just throwing it out there. But that doesn't mean the mayor's salary will drop from 105 to above the 85. It means he'll stay at 105, and then he'll receive the same raise as all the other employees agreed to. So if the employees that year, through the union negotiations or whatever, agreed to a 2% raise, let's say, the mayor would get that raise in that event, where his salary is not in line with the highest paid.
I think what our question is, though, if there's a freeze on, then none of the employees will get a raise, and neither will the mayor.
And neither will the mayor.
Correct.
Then none of the employees will get a raise, and neither will the mayor.
And neither will the mayor.
Correct.
That percentage will.
Because he'll
not
take
get
on the
that
same
as
raise.
well.
But also,
Because they've got nothing, so he gets.
he or she,
He or she.
that's the mayor, is also the one that's negotiating the increases for every other department. So in fact, is actually kind of negotiating their own increase.
No, and I want to correct that. It's not connected at all to the union contracts. It's connected to the salary ordinance that council approves.
Right.
Only council approves the salary ordinance. So that's why it's not connected to anything other than the department heads, which council has full control over that.
Thank you for the
Not that I don't
clarification.
want everybody to get increases, but
David, I'm
asking.
just curious, is that typical in other cities, that the mayor is the highest paid employee?
It was discussion that it is done in other cities that way.
Okay.
And that's why we kind of followed suit, because there are other cities that do that.
Right.
Mhm.
I was just curious.
Okay. So I think that is the end of ordinance 76. Ordinance 77 is,
Can I revisit that for a second, David?
yeah.
Okay,
sure.
and I was just thinking, the mayor in Beechwood, the previous mayor,
I don't know if they'll be able to hear you.
okay, the previous mayor in Beechwood, he left office and he was making $175,000. He was the highest paid government official in Cuyahoga County, I think, or
In the state of
local
Ohio.
government. Yeah. Should we not think maybe we're going to keep paying, that was probably the one issue that ended up him being voted out, I would think, that they just made a big issue of the fact he was making so much as the mayor. Think of a cap that,
Wouldn't that be something the council would?
not if it says he gets 5% above the highest paid.
The only way he would get that is if you
Don't-
approved the police chief at 168,000 or 162,000, whatever, 5% less than 100.
You
Council
control,
would have to approve that highest paid department head.
We'd have a bigger issue than just one salary at that point.
Yeah,
Seriously,
probably-
yeah.
That's probably
It'll be
true.
all over us.
Having a panic attack right now.
She's freaking out over here, man.
Yeah, Sarah, you're
Thinking all sorts of things.
thoughts on this?
I think what
on,
Mr.
Sarah.
Mason is saying is we have,
our checks and balances.
we have the other,
Right.
yeah, we have other opportunities to deal with that before it gets to that point.
Council controls the highest salary, therefore controlling
Control the
that.
salary of all the department heads, essentially.
Correct.
That has to do with negotiations.
That's a good question, though.
Okay.
Uh-huh. All right, so,
77.
all right, we did add in here with the mayor, we added in the benefits. Nowhere does it say anywhere that the mayor receives benefits, even though the mayor does receive benefits. So we just wanted to put it in there because it should be written there, the mayor gets benefits. It's assumed, but we shouldn't assume, we should put it in
We
there.
discussed that in the past.
Yeah. So it just, that spells it out in D as well. I think somewhere I saw that. Okay, and then, all right, ordinance 77. Which one is that? Is that Article?
6.02.
Just the one change in Article 6, 602.
Yeah, okay, the council has the power to fix the compensation of its members, and we crossed off "and that of the mayor," because the salary of the mayor we just defined in the previous section. Salary of the mayor we just defined in the previous section.
Right.
So we crossed that out. Okay?
Okay.
Under finances.
One's
Okay.
easy.
And that's 77.
78.
78 is Administrative Department's Article 7. Oh, the only thing we added here at the beginning is, you'll see it in red, currently the way boards and commissions are chosen is that we put it in the paper a couple times, we send out email blasts, and we say, hey, anybody who wants to be on a commission, sign up, you have this big a window, and you come in and they're filled. Let's say someone leaves the commission, the question becomes, how do we then replace them? So what we said was, instead of going through the whole process again, go back to that list that you received in January, and go back to those people and say, hey, are you interested in this commission? And so that way you already have a list of candidates interested, why start the process all over again?
So we would not have to re-advertise?
Nope.
And we could, do we have to interview again, or it just says, use that
No,
list?
because you already interviewed, so you
Okay,
could just
thank
then
you.
go back to that list and say,
Nice.
would you like to fill it in? It just saves,
And if there's not anybody on the list, then we advertise and get people. Thank you.
correct, correct.
Great, I like it.
Okay. So 702, Department of Finance. Okay, just look at this here. Oh, this was saying that the finance director, how you doing?
Hi.
That the finance director is concurrent with the mayor's elected term, and at the end of each term, you know,
Have to reappoint.
they have to reappoint each time. We basically took that out to say, after you reappoint the first time, right, it's, at that point, it's at will of the mayor. So we said, there's no reason to reappoint every time.
Same with the
And that's going to be in the next section also, that,
Okay.
you guys are going to give your blessing the first time. You don't need to do it every 4 years.
There could be different set of people, but I'm not opposed to the change.
Right. It basically
Because
just
as
cleans up
elections come, usually there's a new mix.
mix of,
Council members.
For instance, Mr. Bellin and Mr. Barr got on, and I don't recall if did we do the motions to approve the law director? And I'm sure we did, but, new members to a council
might want to,
would not have the ability to, I don't care,
Right.
I'm not arguing the point.
No,
All I'm
but that's a good
saying
point.
is,
There's a point.
that's a valid point.
so,
Okay.
too late now.
Well, nothing's ever too late.
Well, I mean,
Um,
it's not like we're going to pull it or anything.
Right. Okay. And same thing with the Department of Public Safety, we just added in, it's the appointment of the mayor. A lot of this is the same then. And the other thing we took out was the Director of Public Safety, and I believe we took that out because we don't necessarily have a Director of Public Safety.
Well, we technically,
Well, we do, but the mayor,
it's the mayor,
It is the
Public
mayor,
Safety.
correct.
but we don't operate where the mayor provides written rules of government for the safety forces. The chiefs do that, so.
Right, so we took that out because it's just not necessary. 705, Civil Service Commission.
I have a question.
Yeah,
So when it talks about the division of police shall consist of a chief of police appointed by the mayor, it doesn't say like, what if there's a new mayor in there, per se, right?
well, all of the department heads are at will of the mayor.
It says that elsewhere, that the mayor has the ability to hire.
So if a new mayor comes in,
Is that elsewhere, that the mayor has the ability to hire?
it's their choice to who they keep in there. It's 100% at the will of the mayor, so. Okay. I'm just looking through here.
And so if I could just help you with the civil service.
Yeah, help me 705, to clean that up. I'm reading that back now again, and I'm just like,
So, civil service, what happened is the Civil Service Commission met, and they met for a couple-month period and revamped all of their rules, and part of that was this section. So this was simply their recommendation from the 3 sitting members that unanimously approved this language to clean up the language that they use regularly at their meetings. So Charter Review Commission was nice enough to basically just adopt what they recommended. And a lot of that, as you'll see, it's adding new directors that we didn't have last time we did this a number of years ago, and just cleaning up language, so.
what he said. And then, if we look here, the next page here, we simply added Director of Golf Maintenance, Director of Restaurant Operations, and Director of Banquet Operations under the Director of Departments, the department heads, and we added those in. And just some language cleanup, really nothing there. 706 is the Department of Law. It's the exact same thing with the Finance Director, but for the Law Director, it's at will of the mayor. Moving along, we have, we took out the Twinsburg Development Foundation in the one paragraph here because there is no Twinsburg Development Foundation. A vacancy occurring during the term of any member of the Planning Commission. We took that out because that was already clarified in how to fill a vacancy in the previous section. So just a bunch of cleanup. All right, so now we'll move on to the next section, 79. 79 is Article 8. Oh, this is a nice one here. We took out this line, I'm going to read this one. Such nominating petitions shall not be circulated prior to 150 days before the said election. We took that one out to basically, all of Summit County, the window to put in your petitions is this big, Twinsburg's is this big. We just put it in line with every other city in Summit County, so nobody would turn in their petitions too early. Not that that would happen.
Wouldn't want that.
All right, and then Oh, the next one, we changed May to August for a primary election. So we know that in the past, it's been recommended to not have the primary. We thought it's better if we're going to have a primary, put the primary in August as opposed to May. Why? Because then people aren't running two campaigns, two expenses, two full, I mean, it's time, it's commitment, it's money. And if you're going to run a primary, we thought better to have it in August as opposed to November. At least then you're in campaign season, you know, so it seems more reasonable on everyone's efforts. Okay, so we changed May to August. Okay. Qualifications down here. We said if you want to qualify for mayor, you have to have 2 continuous years to be a mayor and 1 year to be a member of council, And I think that's everything in ordinance 79. Moving on to ordinance 80, and I think is this our last one?
Should be.
No, there's 81. No.
Is there 81?
81's not, not a charter.
That's not,
Okay.
sorry, okay.
We went to Article 9, and the thing we added was, in 9.03 recall, we added, if the council member that is the subject of a recall is a ward council member, the ballot issue shall only be presented to that council member's ward for consideration. If the council member that is subject of the recall is an at-large council member, the ballot issue shall be presented to the entire electorate. So if someone is recalled from Ward 4, the vote is only to Ward 4. Okay?